correct. I put it more bluntly. I said, as I told congressional leaders during the 1973 Yom Kippur War, no American president will let Israel go down the tube. Right. Democrat or Republican, it's not an issue.
That really is not of any enormous strategic value to the United States anymore.
That's correct. Because the United States is concerned by more than strategic values. That's maybe a weakness, but it's the way we are. And there are moral issues involved here. We don't have an alliance with Israel, as you know. They're not an ally of the United States in the technical sense. But we have a bond to Israel that's much stronger. It's a moral commitment. A moral commitment because of what happened during the Holocaust, and a moral commitment because it is a democracy, the only democracy in that area. And under the circumstances, that is why American presidents and the American people in the future will support all out the survival of Israel if it's attacked. Of Israel, I put a great deal of faith in it because of the track record of the United States, and also because he would know that that is the way the American people are. There is no doubt whatever of our commitment to Israel. Well, at the present time, we could be thankful for the fact that this is the best opportunity in 40 years to make the right kind of a deal in the Middle East, because the Soviet Union no longer is going to poison the deal as they would have previously and have in virtually every previous crisis that we've had. The Iraqis have been taken out of the play. The Egyptians were taken out by Camp David. The Saudis are now being at least not unhelpful. So under the circumstances, this is the time for Israel to make its deal. It also should make its deal now for another reason. Israel at the present time is the only nation in the area that has atomic weapons. Others are going to get them. Therefore, it's better for Israel to make the deal now rather than waiting till later. Because while Israel would be responsible insofar as the use of weapons are concerned, use them only in defense, some of the crazies out there might not be responsible. And that's why for Israel, for the United States, it's important for us to make this deal rather than waiting until later when they would be looking down our throats.
You state that categorically, that the Israelis have atomic weapons. You know they have never admitted it publicly. You stated, as a former president of the United States, you must know what you're talking about.
I'm not going to divulge any of my so-called secret information and so forth, but I will say this, that if I were an Israeli, I wouldn't indicate that I had them, and I wouldn't indicate that I didn't have them. But let me say, most experts in the area assume that they have them, and as long as they assume that, that's enough.
But
I believe, based on what I know, that that is the case. Yes, the book was finished in September, and that's when I wrote Gorbachev off. Not because I wanted to, but because that was the fact. Well, I think it's been a mistake to engage in Yeltsin bashing. I don't think he's the second coming. I don't think anybody is, as a matter of fact. But on the other hand, he has the power. He has repudiated communism. He is for the free market. He is going to adopt a foreign policy which is not aggressive. He's going to cut off all aid to Cuba and Afghanistan and these other losers in the third world. And anybody that does those things deserves the support of the United States. We should hope that he survives.
You think he will?
I think he will survive. I am more optimistic on that than many are. I think he will survive, first because he believes in the right things. He is the only alternative. I think second, he will survive because he is a very strong leader. Third, he has a characteristic that every leader should have. He isn't afraid to have people smarter than he is around him. He has surrounded himself with very bright young people, and they have worked out his economic plans. Gorbachev, unfortunately, who was very bright himself, made a mistake. He was surrounded by what I would call first-rate, second-rate people, except possibly for Shevardnadze, who was first-rate in every respect. Nationalism is a danger, but it's one that I think that Yeltsin will be shrewd enough to handle. As far as nuclear proliferation is concerned, it isn't a question of the weapons proliferating, it's a question of the knowledge to make them proliferate. They're not going to take these weapons and cart them over to somebody else who won't know how to use them or to make them. And in that respect, you've got to find a way to improve the Russian economy so that they will stay home, and a way to work out joint ventures with the United States and other Western countries' scientists so that they will have a place to go. You want to remember, of course, that German scientists Wernher von Braun and others helped us develop our missile capability. We don't want to have the Russian or Soviet scientists, who are very, very good in this area. They may be last in many other areas, but they're very good in this area. We don't want to have them ending up in places like Libya or Syria or other rogue states.
And how do you prevent that?
It is a difficult thing to do, but the point is to give them a better option. Give them a better option at home, improved conditions there, other activities for them to engage in, and better options in working with their compatriots abroad.
Well, I mean,
be helpful not only in that respect, but also with regard to humanitarian aid, with regard to possible aid for the transition purposes and so forth. But we have to recognize that whereas right after the great victory in World War II, we had to do it alone because there was no one else to do it, that now, after the defeat of communism in 1991, there are others who should assume that burden more than we do. Those that we helped after World War II, the Germans have already done, for their own reasons, you know, have provided a considerable amount of help to the former Soviet Union. But the Japanese should pick up a lot of the tab? Totally not. If it were charity, then we wouldn't do it. Although we are a very generous people, as you know. Whenever there's an earthquake or a tragedy any place in the world, Americans pour out their hearts and their money as well. But on the other hand, as far as foreign aid is concerned, we're doing it for our own interests. It's very important at this time that Yeltsin not fail. Because as Russia goes, the rest of the former Soviet Union will also go. We still live in a very dangerous world because of the instability in the world. But that instability is preferable to what it was before. That when you had stability with all the power in the Soviet Union in one source, that was a potential danger to the United States of great magnitude because that was the only power in the world that could destroy the United States. Today, that power has been passed around to others, the Russians, Ukrainians. For example, the control of nuclear weapons, as you know, is now in the hands of four, the button so-called. It cannot be pushed unless four agree. That makes it a much safer world. I would say as far as the world generally is concerned, though, it's a much more hopeful world because of the march of democracy. When you stop to think that today, as Freedom House reported just last week, over half the countries in the world are now democracies or are on the way to becoming democracies. That's something new in the world. When you think that today we have a situation where freedom is on the march every place, communism has been discredited, socialism has been discredited, authoritarianism has been discredited. The people of the world know that freedom works. It works in the United States. It works in Western Europe. It works in Japan. And if we can help make it work in the former Soviet Union, then it means the victory will have been won. And it'll mean the next century can be a century of peace. It can be a century of progress. It can be a century of freedom. And that's something that's certainly worth Americans supporting, whether with foreign aid or any other facility we can use.
President Nixon, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Happy birthday, and I wish you good fortune with your new book and hope to have you back for your 80th.
Well, I hope I don't celebrate my 80th on television, because that's the time when you don't want to look back, you want to look forward to see what you're going to do with the rest of your life.
There you go.